All right, what is going on, Pats Nation? You guys already know who it is. Patriots Global here, back with another one here again with my boy Patriots Football Breakdown.
Yes,
Guys, you know
sir.
what it is. You guys know what it is. Every Monday, we are going to be going live to recap the games. Now, usually it is 5 to 5:30. Unfortunately, your boy was dealing with a lot of technical issues with my computer. So, I mean, Apple's not sponsoring me, but if you have to get a computer, go with a MacBook because any other computer is absolutely terrible. So today's delay is definitely on your boy. But we finally got things figured out. We're finally going live, and nonetheless, that's the most important part. But the New England Patriots win one heck of a game. 24-27 on the road. New England is undefeated on the road. Would you believe that? Would you believe that the New England Patriots are struggling at home with all these new pieces, but they
Strange.
go on the road and they're undefeated?
Yeah, that's really weird. That's like the complete opposite of conventional wisdom, right? You're supposed to be good at home, supposed to be maybe 500-ish on the road. That's kind of how the good teams usually view it, defend home turf. Then if you can get a split on the road in your road games, that's good. Yeah, that's really strange. The Road Warriors, I mean, that's good. They've proven they can win away from Gillette Stadium, but they got to get better at home. They got to start defending home turf a little bit better. I think they will as the season goes on. I mean, that was a couple of close, three real close losses. The 1-point loss to the Dolphins, the 2-point loss to the Bucs, overtime to the Cowboys. I mean, it's not like they were getting blown out, but they got to make those few plays here and there to finish. And I think that's what they've done a good job of the last couple of weeks. Definitely yesterday. I don't think they win that game a month ago. This team is definitely growing in the right direction, in my opinion. Making the smart plays later in the game to really finish. I thought they did a great job of that yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, especially this offense. I feel like each week we're finally seeing this offense make progress. Now, look, we're gonna get into this in the live stream today, but there's definitely still things that we've seen since the start of the season that are definitely still in play that makes this team not a a deep playoff run team. Now, a team that can definitely make the playoffs, but as of right now, until this team takes care of the ball, gets rid of those stupid penalties, I mean, this is not a deep run playoff team, but I do still think that, from what we have seen over the last few weeks of development, that this is definitely a team that 100% can squeeze into the playoffs. And, this is a game too, where you look at the statistics and last week we talked about this, in the post game, me and you against the Jets, how statistically you look at the team's stats, New England won in every single category except one. The Los Angeles Chargers won in a good amount of these categories. You look at total yards, the Chargers beat the Patriots. The Chargers put up 369 total yards to the Patriots 352. Passing yards, New England actually puts up more, 211 to the Chargers 206. Rushing yards, the Chargers go off for 163 to New England's 141. The Chargers were averaging more yards per play, 6.4 to New England's 4.7. Obviously, New England lost that fumble, but the Chargers did also throw 2 interceptions. The Chargers allowed 3 sacks to New England's 1 sack. Third down efficiency, New England actually did much better than the Chargers. New England's third down efficiency was 47% to the Chargers, 33%. And New England's time of possession was also a lot higher, about 11 minutes higher here, 35 minutes of possession to the Chargers, 24 minutes of possession, which you really go back and you look at how the Patriots won this game. And it's something we've been telling them to do for so long. Run the ball, run the clock, drain the clock, and win the game that way. And I think that's what they did. And you look at towards the end of this game, it was 3 points within the last 10, 20 seconds of the game because you allowed the Chargers to go down the field and score a last-minute touchdown. If you put more time on that board, you give them a minute or more, there's a good chance they're going down and at the very least tying this game. So you go back and you look at that drive that took up what it was like. I want to say,
almost like 7 minutes, 6-7 minutes. Yeah.
6 to 9 minutes. If you don't have that long drive, this game could be going another way.
Yep. Yeah. That was a masterclass by Josh McDaniels. Just the whole offense, really. I mean, the guys knowing, situational football, stay in bounds, don't go out of bounds, keep the clock running. I thought that was so great. That was so smart. And yeah, I mean, it was disappointing to see at the end Jalen Mills give up that long pass to Josh Palmer, the touchdown. It's like the literally the one thing you don't want to give up is a long pass down the sideline for a touchdown. And of course, here's Jalen Mills, long pass down the sideline, touchdown. That's got to get better. We got to get him figured out. But yeah, I just thought we really executed well at the end of the game yesterday. The Chargers were kind of out of sorts, I think, on offense. I think a lot of that is credit to Bill Belichick, the defense. I think they got after Herbert a little bit, got in his head, kind of showed him some pressure looks, but then kind of backed out at the last second. Really, really a full assortment of different looks that they threw at him. And I think, statistically, the run defense, I think it was better than what the stats might indicate. Because they gave up that one run, 75 yards to Justin Jackson. You take that away, I think it was something like 19 carries for 85, 88 yards. I think overall it was a good day. I think defensively, all around, run game, pass rush, pass coverage. Side of that little blip there at the end by Jalen Mills. But I thought overall defense A+, great job. The offense a little sluggish in the first half, got off to a bit of a rocky start, but they were very efficient in the second half, and they sealed the deal when they had to. Disappointing to see the holding penalty on Justin Herron that took the Damian Harris, I think it was like 25-yard touchdown off the board. And then the following play was when Kendrick Bourne had that fumble in Chargers territory, no less.
Yeah,
Isaiah, we got to clean up
those
those mistakes.
Yeah. So to start off here with the offense, one of my first big things here was first half of the football game versus the second half of the football game. Going into this game, I don't know about you, but me personally, I'm pounding for the New England Patriots to run the ball. Now, not just because, again, like we talked about earlier, you need to run out the clock, especially against these better teams, especially against these teams with elite offenses, like the Bucs, the Cowboys, the Chargers, teams that are known for their offense, right? The Patriots got away from the run game in the first half, and the Chargers are the worst team in the league against the run. They are allowing more yards per attempt to running backs than any other team in the NFL. And New England was passing the ball a lot in the first half. Now, in the second half, they definitely switched it up, and they definitely started going more towards the run game, which I definitely, again, like we talked about, that really helped seal the game at the end because it gave the Patriots it gave the Patriots offense more time on the field, but it gave the Chargers offense less time on the field ultimately. Right. But it really surprised me to see them really not go to the running game in the first half, considering where the Chargers defense ranks against the run and knowing that you do have running backs that are capable of doing so. And we did see Mac struggle for sure within the first half with some overthrown passes, passes behind guys, deep passes that weren't exactly there. So, and it definitely surprised me to see this team not go with the running game more in the first half.
Yeah, a little strange in the first half, like you mentioned, kind of the strategy. You figured we would come out running the ball aggressively, like I said, 32nd ranked run defense, the Chargers. But yeah, I think they tried to hit them with some reverse psychology, maybe get the passing game going. Maybe they thought the Chargers were expecting a heavy run attack, so that's when they went up to the air, play action, things like that. But yeah, Mac had his struggles yesterday, particularly in kind of the middle of the game. I think he went through like a 2 for 13 stretch. Probably his worst game statistically as a pro, but I thought he made good, tough throws, smart throws in the fourth quarter. It was an efficient day. It wasn't a glamorous day on offense. Again, the numbers don't always look that great in any category, but I think they did just enough. They played smart football. They executed when they needed to. I think that was ultimately what won the day. And then, just the great defense again. They got off to a little bit of a slow start, but the 2 interceptions by Adrian Phillips, that was key. That was so crucial. He needs a contract extension ASAP. I thought the Chargers defense, they did a reasonably good job. I mean, I didn't think they got that much pressure. I thought they got away with the holding penalty on. I thought Hunter did get held on that play. They threw the flag and they picked it up. I was a little puzzled by that.
Yeah.
But, just all around great day. Statistically not that great, but it's not always about what the statistics show. You look at some of the game film, some of the ways that they executed late in the game. I thought it was great.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree. So, a lot of people were a little controversial about Mac Jones' performance. I'll get into my thoughts here, but first off, I want to know your thoughts. How do you personally feel that Mac performed against the Chargers?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was he didn't make any mistakes, or not costly mistakes anyway. Didn't have any interceptions, didn't have any fumbles lost. I think that's the main thing with your rookie quarterback. Just don't lose the game. That was an old school, like early 2000s Patriots type of game plan. Run the ball, play defense, control the clock. Sprinkle in some play action passes here and there. Made like 25 passes, predominantly with the run game. Control the clock again. I know Mac threw like 35 passes yesterday, but I think ideally, as long as he's not making the mistakes that get you beat, that's perfect. They'll take whatever they can get. Otherwise, I mean, just don't lose the game. That's the number one thing I think Bill probably looks for in his quarterbacks: accuracy and decision making. Just don't make the crucial mistake. Let the defense take care of things. Let the running game take care of things. I thought Mac, there were some struggles, right? I mean, they're, like I said, that 2 for 13 stretch, not very good. But I mean, the Chargers have a lot of talent on defense too. Derwin James, Nick Bosa, Asante Samuel Jr. Having a pretty good rookie season, but statistically wasn't that great. But I think he played a smart game. Didn't turn the ball over. Didn't put the team in a bad position to potentially lose the game. So I would give him probably a solid B- on the day if I had to put a grade on it, just because the stats were a little hard to look at. But overall, I think he kind of overcame that late in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, Mac Jones didn't do anything bad in this game, but he wasn't great. He was good. He got the job done. That's what I would say. If I had to say it to someone, I would say Mac Jones was good in this game. He got the job done. Wasn't anything spectacular. Wasn't anything great. I think if Mac Jones throws, an interception or two, we're talking about a totally different story. But nonetheless, takes care of the football. Statistically, it was actually his worst of the game. Like you said, stats aren't everything, but they definitely, do show a story there. And statistically, this was Mac Jones' worst game yet. 35 attempts with 18 completions for 218 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Like I said, we did see a lot of passes overthrown, passes that were too high, and no player, like we mentioned, this was a pretty pass-heavy game for the Patriots, unexpectedly, especially in the first half, and no player recorded more than 60 yards receiving. The highest receiver was Nelson Aguilar with exactly 60 yards, and the next closest was Bourne with only 38 yards.
Yeah, not a lot of offensive output on the day. I think they really got lucky that they played defensively as well as they did. Like you said, I think if we have any more mistake, like a turnover here or there, an extra turnover, or if maybe Justin Herbert has a little bit more time at the end of the game, that might have come back to bite us a little bit. We got to play a little bit cleaner, a little bit smarter, eliminate some of the mistakes. The crucial penalties that take points off the board, like we saw yesterday. Another fumble. That's 6 fumbles now for the Patriots on the season. That's already one more than we had all of last year. Yeah. Something we definitely got to get cleaned up. Kendrick Bourne didn't come back into the game, I think, after that fumble. So, is he in the doghouse now? Just a lot of the mental mistakes, things that we can prevent too. I mean, ball security, that's, you get taught that in high school. I mean, that's obviously paramount. Can't be having the fumbles, the silly penalties. I mean, you're not going to play a perfect game every week, but you can't shoot yourself in the foot in those big moments. They've done that quite a bit this year. I think they're starting to get a little bit better in that regard, but it still kind of reared its ugly head yesterday.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. We did get our first donation, like always. Donations do get priority here. So Mac 10 Rookie of the Year. What do you think here about, because this really is, and if you look at statistically, you look at Vegas's numbers here, it's close between Mac and Jamar Chase. Yeah. Who do you think it's going to come down to the wire? Is it going to be Jamar Chase for, Offensive Rookie of the Year, or is it going to be Mac?
I think it'll probably wind up being Jamar Chase. I'd probably give the slight edge to him. I think he's going to have a better opportunity to put up a lot of numbers. He's kind of reliant on somebody else to get his numbers, but he's got a great quarterback, a great young quarterback, and Joe Burrow, will say, really talented offense around him. He's got some pieces, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. They got a pretty good offensive line, good running backs, Joe Mixon. So they got a lot of talent there on offense. It's not like they can just double or roll coverage to his side to take him out of the game. I think Jamar Chase is going to have more opportunities to put up big numbers in big games. For that reason, I would probably lean toward Jamar Chase a little bit. But I think Mac does have a chance to be the Rookie of the Year in terms of all the rookie quarterbacks taken in the first round. Oh, yeah. I mean, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, they haven't started the amount of games that like Mac and Trevor Lawrence and the guy, name is escaping me right now, Zach Wilson. That's another thing too. Mike White yesterday putting up over 400 yards. Might be a little bit of a controversy there in New York, but I think as far as rookie quarterbacks go, Mac looks the best right now. Definitely, he's having the best start so far.
I definitely agree. I mean, there's really no argument you can make that Mac Jones is not the best rookie quarterback. You go week by week. Usually his PFF grade 95% of the time is higher than any other of these rookie quarterbacks, especially those taken in the first round. And if you look at his overall PFF grade of the entire year, it is much higher than any other quarterback. So if it came down to that, Mac Jones would definitely win. But I mean, Jamar Chase on pace for over 2,000 yards. He's just playing spectacular. I mean, Mac Jones is he's really gonna have to light up the field for the rest of the season. He's going to have to show something really good if we make the playoffs to really get that offensive rookie of the year. Now, luckily enough for him, quarterbacks definitely do have the edge over, I would say, any other position on the offense. But when you are performing the way that Jamar Chase is, if you put up over 2,000 yards in your rookie season, I mean, it's hard to beat that. It's going to be hard for Mac to beat that. And again, we just talked about him not having a great game. He only has one game so far with over 300 passing yards.
Yeah.
I definitely give that edge over to Jamar Chase, but it's still in the running. It's halfway through the season. You never know what can happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of bothers me a little bit. The fact that it seems like everything is toward the quarterbacks. I mean, it's almost like you got to put it in separate categories at this point.
No, I totally agree. I mean, you look at MVPs, you look at just several different categories offensively. A lot of times these quarterbacks are the ones coming out on top, and I understand where they're coming from. I mean, quarterback is the hardest position to play. You're really running the team. I mean, a good quarterback versus a bad quarterback really changes the atmosphere of an entire game, but you do have to look at other positions sometimes.
Like college too, like the Heisman Trophy race. It's like every single year it's a quarterback that wins it. It's like nobody else even gets consideration. I think it's kind of slanted a little bit too far in the quarterback direction these days. But like you said, I understand kind of why they do it that way.
Yeah, and I understand, but like you even said, at some point you do kind of have to look at other positions. And look, I will say, in order for a player to get Rookie of the Year, MVP, anything like that offensively, Heisman, they really do have to perform at a higher rate. If you're talking about running back, you really have to put up spectacular numbers there for a running back. If you're going to be a wide receiver, you have to put up spectacular numbers for a wide receiver. I'm not talking about 1,200 yards. I'm talking about like 2,000 plus yards, like a genuine spectacular season that you don't see very often. So I think
I might be wrong, but I think that's only been done one other time. I think Jerry Rice had a 2,000-yard season, but it definitely wasn't his rookie year. If Chase is able to do that, I know it's 17 games now instead of 16. That would be just remarkable. That would be legendary if he's able to pull that off.
Yeah, and he's on pace for over 2,000 yards. So I really don't think that last game is going to be what separates those statistics here. But Felipe here, a longtime supporter and donator of the channel, with a $5 donation. Really appreciate you, man. You said, do you think if Stokes would have fell to round 2 that the Pats would have drafted him over Barmore? Heard the Pats were high on him. So I definitely think the Patriots were interested in some of these cornerbacks, but these cornerbacks were flying off the market in this past draft. Super, super high. I mean, some of these guys that were going in the late first round, I was like, I don't have a first round grade on these guys. I have a second to third round grade, but the demand for cornerbacks was so high this offseason that teams were really kind of pushing their luck and drafting these guys higher. And I was a big fan of Stokes, and you know what? He's working out really well there for, I believe he's at the Green Bay Packers. He's working out really well for them so far. And I do wish the Patriots ended up getting Stokes, at least making a push for him. Now, ultimately, I do believe the selection of Barmore was better than if they went and drafted Stokes. I mean, Barmore is the most double-teamed defensive tackle in the entire NFL right now.
He beat one yesterday for a sack, too. He beat a double team and wound up recording a sack in the second half yesterday's game. Yeah, he's looking like he's going to turn into a terror on the inside of that defensive line. That's looking like a really, really great draft pick right now. As far as the cornerback position, taking a cornerback last year, I mean, I think it's it's kind of easy to look back on it now, considering where we're at. We're pretty thin there. JC entering free agency, Jonathan Jones out for the year. Jalen Mills playing pretty poorly, frankly. Since the hamstring injury, I'm not sure if that has something to do with it. Still, it probably does. Miles Bryant looked really good yesterday again, kind of all over the field, pass rush, back at safety, dropping back in coverage. They're using him like a valuable chess piece. But I mean, you think back to last offseason, we still had Stephon Gilmore on the roster, still had J.C. Jackson, Jonathan Jones. We still had much better depth at cornerback last year than we do right now. So I can see the idea of why we'd like to have taken one back then now. But I think at the time, and considering how bad the defensive front was last year, the front seven was terrible. Couldn't stop the run for anything. We definitely needed some help on the interior defensive line. I understand definitely needing needing a cornerback at this point. Maybe that's something we address either in free agency or the draft this year. But I think at the time last year, it was probably the best move to go ahead and take Christian Barmore, especially the way he's panning out so far. Like you said, he's getting double teamed left and right, still getting home, getting sacks. He's having a great rookie season.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, and I think Belichick looked at this as as an atmosphere of, you look at Christian Barmore, you look at where he dropped into the second round. I didn't see anybody throughout the entire draft process that had Christian Barmore falling to the second round. Christian Barmore was the best, undoubtedly. You cannot make an argument. Christian Barmore was the best interior defensive lineman in this entire draft. And Christian Barmore on tape, you can clearly see he was raw, but he showed the ability to be a run stopper, but also, more importantly, showed the ability to push a pocket even on double to triple teams.
Yeah.
And that's something the Patriots don't have. That's the big reason they drafted Christian Barmore. It's not because, we need a young defensive tackle, big body in the middle, because I mean, he's a pretty decent guy, but he's not as big as defensive tackles get. They really drafted him because of that versatility. The Patriots always within the interior of the defensive line, and the defensive line in general, they usually have a guy who can stop the run, or they have a guy who can pass rush. It's very rare that they have both, and Christian Barmore was a guy they could get on a 4-year rookie contract that is able to do both. And it's, like you said, panning out really well for them. And I think at the end of the day, the ceiling of Christian Barmore is higher than, what you would have gotten with Stokes. And I definitely believe too that the impact you're getting right now with Christian Barmore is far more greater than what you were going to get with Eric Stokes if you drafted him instead.
Yeah, like you say, I think you hit the nail on the head. You can find, big bodies on any practice squad. The difference between them and Christian Barmore is he has significant pass rush talent. He's got defensive end talent in a defensive tackle's body. Great athlete, is able to do something that not a lot of, he's kind of not comparing him to these players, but kind of similar to guys like, Aaron Donald, Warren Sapp, even, guys in that similar mold of player. Interior defensive linemen, they're not just run stuffers. They can get up after the quarterback, pass rush up the field. That's a pretty unique thing to have out of a 4-3 defensive tackle. I mean, a guy this year that I would like now that we're talking about defensive lineman, Jordan Davis out of Georgia. That dude is a monster. Talking about like 6'6", 340. He's a nose tackle for Georgia, kind of the anchor of that defense. If we could somehow maybe get him mid to late first round, I think that would be an awesome addition.
Yeah. So a beyond huge donation here from another big time supporter of the channel, my boy and my brother Reggie P, in here with the biggest chat that we have gotten in today's chat. One of the biggest we've gotten, period. Reggie P here, $20 donation. Big shout out to you, Reggie. You said, who do you think will lead the Patriots in passing yards at the end of the season? Also, do you see us getting 10 plus wins? So if the Patriots continue to play the way that they have, I definitely, without a doubt, I believe the Patriots will get to 10 to 11 wins. Now, do I think they're going to get much higher than that? No. I think it's going to be a little bit of a squeeze, but I definitely think the Patriots, especially with one added game, they'll get to double-digit wins, whether that's 10, 11 wins. I think that's kind of a sweet spot that they can get. 12, I think, could be pushing it. It depends on how this team plays. If they keep playing the way they have the last 2 weeks, then maybe. But I'm going between 10 to 11 wins at this point. I do think that they will push a double-digit win this season.
Yeah, I mean, to get to 12 wins, you're talking about finishing 8-1. That's a pretty tough ask. Yeah, I mean, that would be great. I would love to see it, but I just don't know how realistic that is. Yeah, I mean, around the 10 win range, I think that's reasonable. A 6-4 finish. Yeah, I mean, why not? Or not 6-4, 6-3 finish. I think that would be pretty good. I think the schedule next month or so looks pretty light now in light of recent things. Cleveland is kind of hitting rock bottom right now. They look pretty disjointed. Tennessee losing Derrick Henry. We were talking about that a little bit earlier. Carolina next week. I mean, you don't want to go counting wins, but the Panthers started 3-0. 1-4 since then. A little bit banged up there too in Atlanta. Not really any great shape either. Don't take the opponents for granted, but the schedule does look pretty soft here in the next month or so. It's a position where we could be in to make some hay, maybe get to maybe 8-4 in a positive light. I think it's something that's attainable right now. If we continue to play at this level, eliminate mistakes, continue to grow offensively, continue to be more efficient, I think that's something that's definitely within the realm of possibility. And with how congested the middle of the AFC is right now, I think they're absolutely in position to be in one of those wild card spots toward the end of the year. I think it's definitely looking good for that.
Yeah. So actually, let me just turn this up real quick. If you look at the playoff picture actually right now with the AFC specifically, the Tennessee Titans are number one. Can you believe that? The Tennessee Titans are
6-2,
number one. I'm sorry, but I just for 1 second I need to take a step back and say I don't know what atmosphere we're in 2021, but the NFL, at least for the AFC, is so weird this year with seedings and expectations. I mean, usually, you look at the Patriots a few years ago, right? The Patriots were the team to beat. You knew that they were plugged into the championship at least, let alone the Super Bowl. They were going to be the first to second seed. The Kansas City Chiefs took that over the last few years. There is no team right now that is that number one dog.
No.
The AFC and I would even say fairly the NFC, but definitely the AFC. This is completely open. Completely.
Yeah, the NFC, I think it's a little more top heavy, if anything. You got teams like the Rams, definitely. The Cards, the Cowboys, even Tampa. But the middle of that conference isn't really too impressive. The AFC, you don't really have anybody that really stands out above the crowd. But it, like you said, it's so congested. They're kind of in the middle. It could go a lot of different ways at this point. 4-4, it doesn't sound great, but it's actually a pretty damn good spot to be in right now. And I think if we continue to play at the level we have and continue to ascend, absolutely playoffs could be in the future for this team. Even in a year where we feel like we could be a year away. I know a lot of people had high hopes going into this season for playoffs. I did too. I think maybe we had to temper those expectations a little bit after what we saw early in the season, but I think the playoffs are definitely in the realm of possibility if things continue in a positive way.
Yeah, definitely. And you look at the playoff seeding right now. The Tennessee Titans are number one at 6-2 as the AFC South leader. The Las Vegas Raiders, despite whatever is going on with them right now, they are 5-2, the AFC West leader. The Baltimore Ravens 5-2, AFC North leader. The Buffalo Bills 5-2, AFC East leader. The Cincinnati Bengals 5-3. They're the first wild card. Pittsburgh 4-3, second wild card, and the Chargers are 4-3 with the third wild card. On the bubble, you have New England 4-4, Cleveland Browns 4-4, Denver Broncos 3-4, Kansas City Chiefs 3-4. We have a better record than the Chiefs right now, and then the Indianapolis Colts 3-5. So New England's really pushing that bubble right now, and one game changes everything completely to the end of the season. So whether it's the final week of the season or whether it's next week, this team's got to come out with wins 100%. But to answer the second part of this question, who do you think is going to lead the Patriots in passing yards at the end of the season?
Well, when we say passing yards, we're talking about like receiving yards,
That's what I would figure. Yeah.
I would probably say Jacoby Myers. He seems like he's the most targeted week-to-week player. I think Mac probably has the most comfort level with him. I don't have the stats right in front of me, but if I had to guess, if I had to postulate a little bit, I would say that Jacoby Myers probably stands to have the biggest statistical year from here on out, just considering how many targets he's getting from Mac each game, the way he's I think he had like 9 targets yesterday, only had 4 receptions, so they weren't able to really connect on too many of those passes. But him, Hunter Henry, he's had some good chemistry with Hunter Henry lately. Probably you're looking at one of those two. I'd probably side with Jacoby Myers at this point.
Yeah, I definitely think it's tough because Mac likes to spread the ball out. And I feel like what we're seeing now is very different from what we saw in the beginning of the season where they were going to Jacoby a lot. Jacoby hasn't led the team in receiving yards in a few weeks. So just kind of based off of what we've been seeing as development, if these guys stay healthy, I'm gonna make a bold statement here, and I'm gonna go with Kendrick Bourne. I'm gonna say Kendrick Bourne leads the Patriots in receiving yards, and I think Jacoby Myers is definitely a pick that could 100% happen.
I want more 75 yarders in one play like that against Dallas. I need a few more of those.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think what we've seen from Kendrick Bourne over the last couple of weeks is that him and Mac continue to get more and more and more comfortable with each other, especially as the season goes on. And Kendrick Bourne has, over the last couple of weeks, really been more of a deep threat than Jacoby Myers has. I mean, you look at that 75-yard play against the Cowboys. You look at last week down the sideline. I mean, Kendrick Bourne is becoming not just a short to intermediate threat, but also a deep threat that, has a max trust. So I'm going to end it saying with Kendrick Bourne. But I mean, either way, I think this is going to be very close. I think it's going to be very close between.
That's a good point with the
and
deep shots. He's getting, maybe some more deep shots than guys like Nelson Aguilar, Jacoby Myers. That's a good point.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll have to see how things go. Obviously, injuries are all pending too. I just haven't seen as much from Jacoby, I would say, over the last couple of weeks than I think, we're really used to. But we'll have to see, of course, how that really develops here. 1 second. All right. So we had a little glitch here in the stream for a second. The Ignorant Bostonian says, oh, by the way, big shout out to you for a $5 donation. You said, I think the Pats are better than people think. Do you think that we can make a deep playoff run? The AFC seems more balanced compared to previous seasons. So I'll start off with this one. I think that, right now, from what we've seen from this team, I think the penalties, I think the stupid turnovers and the fumbles, and especially at bad moments, because you look at these turnovers, like they are constantly happening when we're in the red zone, when we're on the opponent's field. That is when we're turning the ball over. The worst time when you're 100%, because Nick Folk is one of the best kickers in the league. Yeah. You're 98% likely to at least get 3 points on the board, but that turns into 0 because we're turning the ball over. I think you're not going to make a deep playoff run if you continue to make those mistakes, but I do definitely think that they can make a playoff run. I also think it depends on who they play. I think that's very dependent. Like you mentioned in your comment there, it's very wide open. You don't know who you're going to play. It's not, you can look at it right now and say, well, the Kansas City Chiefs are definitely going to be number 1. The Buffalo Bills are going to be definitely number 2. This is way too wide open to say. Yeah. And I think it's very dependent on who the New England Patriots play. I mean, is it going to be the Buffalo Bills? Is it going to be the Baltimore Ravens? Is it going to be the Cincinnati Bengals or the Raiders? I think that's very dependent on, how deep this team can make a playoff run is really dependent on who they play.
Yeah, a lot of it depends on, like you said, seeding, matchups, who you play, who your path is against. We've seen in years past where I think it was 2005, we ended the season at home against Miami. I think that was the Doug Flutie dropkick game. I think they were kind of not trying to lose, but they weren't trying too hard to win that game to avoid Pittsburgh in the wild card round. Instead, they got to face Jacksonville, and they wound up winning that game. Just some jockeying for position in that sort of way. Yeah, it depends on who we get. And, this team's we got to focus on winning regular season games first before we start thinking about winning playoff games. They did good yesterday. Still a couple mistakes that we need to get ironed out. Still need to get back to playing a little bit cleaner football, Patriot way type of football. But, I think yesterday was a good start, good step in the right direction. As far as a deep playoff run, I mean, hell, I'd love to see it, but I can't honestly sit here and tell you that I would expect it this year. That would be nothing short of miraculous. It would take a lot of things for that to happen. I think you're looking at maybe next year or the year after that. But, for me, if this team can just continue to grow and gel together and, play good, smart, sound football, Patriot type of football that we've seen over the last couple of decades, I'll be more than happy with that. I mean, the fact that we haven't really had any rebuilds, until now I would say now is the biggest rebuild we've had under Bill Belichick. The fact that this is the first one in 20 years, that's pretty remarkable. I mean, look at what the Chiefs are going through right now. That foundation seems to be crumbling, and they just got to the top. Getting to the top is one thing. Staying there is a whole nother thing.
Oh yeah.
I think this, we got to let this thing kind of marinate a little bit for this year. But in the coming years, the future is definitely bright. Yeah,
like you said, staying at the top super hard. I mean, that's why. That's why you never see teams win back-to-back Super Bowls. That's what Brady's trying to do this year because he hasn't done. You're really trying to win back-to-back Super Bowls because it's hard to stay at the top, let alone continue to stay there for a while. But Felipe here with another very, very big donation. Big shout out to Felipe in today's chat. He is murdering the game today. So big shout out to you, bro. You said, have you heard anything about the trade deadline? Sorry, guys. I don't know if I heard it here or somewhere else. Someone say that we have no cap, and someone say that we do have cap. We need more receivers, a Cooks or even a Rob, someone who can spread the field. So here's what I'll say. I haven't necessarily heard the Patriots in specific players. Now, I early on into the process, I heard a name come up like an Aaron Jones type of potential trade there. But other than that, there hasn't really been specific players that we're hearing. Oh, the Patriots are very interested in them. Guys, let's remember the trade deadline is tomorrow at
Yep.
4 p.m. I mean, usually when teams do make trades, it really is pushing that wire of the final day. So I do think we could see some final trades tomorrow for sure. But actually, I believe it was today or yesterday. I believe it might have been today. Belichick was actually asked about the trade deadline. And he said, I don't know. I know as much as you guys do about the trade deadline because Belichick is giving all of those authorities for the final trade deadline potential there to the oh my god, his name's escaping me right now. The guy who took over for Nick Caserio.
And the
I'm not sure why it's escaping me right now. Anyway, so the guy who took over for Nick Caserio, whose name for some reason is not there right now, Belichick said that he's actually in charge of all of that, and he knows absolutely nothing. He knows as much as we do. And if the Patriots do decide to make a move, they do decide to make a trade, that it's going to be something that goes through him and not necessarily 100% Bill Belichick. So it's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be interesting. And I also thought that interesting comment by Belichick because Belichick usually is the front runner of all of this. And I think over the last year in the draft process and free agency, he's really taken a step back and giving these authorities to other people when it comes to the draft process, free agency, trades, all that stuff. So, I mean, it's big shout out to him. I mean, it's worked out for the Patriots so far. And if Belichick's telling the truth and, he's really giving that authority to somebody else and he doesn't know anything, then I'll be interested to see. But at the same time, you have to ask yourself, what piece is genuinely going to be there that changes the entire atmosphere for the New England Patriots, rest of the season? Because chances are the Patriots are going to trade. You look at history, they're going to trade for a guy that's in the final year of his contract. Nonetheless, you have to give up draft capital for that. You have to go for a guy that's going to make a genuine impact for your team. Don't give up draft capital just to give it up. We're not a guaranteed playoff team.
Right.
This is the type of move you have to make where we know that this piece is going to make the difference in taking us to that next level to make it to the playoffs. And I think, again, if there's any position they're going to do that with, it's going to be cornerback, which has really struggled over the last several weeks, running back. And honestly, I know everyone's thinking wide receiver, but I don't really see them trading for a wide receiver at this point. I think if they did, it would have to be more top notch. Last year, they traded for a conditional 6th or 7th round pick for Isaiah Ford, who they ended up cutting a couple days
went right
later.
back to Miami.
Yeah, a couple days later, they just ended up cutting. So he didn't do anything for this team. And last year, the team was in a much worse spot with receivers. I think that they're in a pretty comfortable spot with Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, Aguilar, Bourne. So unless there is a top-notch receiver that they can squeeze in for limited cap space, I don't see them adding another wide receiver, potentially an offensive lineman for depth there. We'll get into that, in a little bit here. But I would definitely say cornerback, maybe running back is really where I would see this team potentially make an addition. But I'm not really expecting them to make anything. I think they're fairly comfortable with what they have. I think it all just comes down to getting healthy at this point.
Yeah, this is a great topic. This is very interesting. I think going back to originally with the Bill thing, talking about what he knows, what he doesn't know. I think even if Bill knew something, he probably wouldn't even tell us. He's close to the vest like that. In terms of the power structure inside the organization, the fact that you're seeing Bill kind of delegate a little bit more to guys where he necessarily wouldn't have in the past. Normally he's 100% no level of checks and balances whatsoever. He's the final decision maker at every level. I think that's kind of, not to go to a negative thought, but that's probably maybe letting you know that the end might be a little bit closer than we think. Maybe Bill leaves in a couple 2 or 3 years. He wants to leave the organization in a positive note, in a good place. He doesn't want to leave and just watch the bottom fall out. He wants to make sure that after he's gone, these guys have a succession plan in place and that the whole operation doesn't just go down the tubes. But I think that's kind of what I think about when I see Bill kind of delegating a little bit. But as far as the trade deadline tomorrow, I think the question he mentioned, if we have cap space, if we don't have cap space, I looked last week. As of then, we had about 7.5 million in space, which is decent, but it's not anything that's going to allow you to go out and get a top tier player.
Yeah, not at all.
I think at the wide receiver position, I honestly think we're good at wide receiver. I don't think that's an issue. I don't think that's something that you necessarily need to go out and address right now. I mean, if you have an opportunity to get better, like maybe in the offseason, I'll put it this way. Wide receiver is not your issue right now. They're, like you said, cornerback, depth at cornerback, maybe another third down back, a little more depth on the offensive line, maybe a little more speed at linebacker. I don't think wide receiver is really an issue right now. Like guys like Allen Robinson, you said it, do you want to give up all that capital for essentially a rental? He's going to be going into free agency again. Not only are you going to have to be taking on all that money to bring him in, but you're also going to have to give up, high draft picks. Just not really worth it. If he was signed long-term, I'd consider it. But, just the financials and what we'd have to give up and, with where he's at contract-wise, I'd rather take my chances if he hits free agency, if the Bears don't tag him again. I know another one people have been talking about, like Odell Beckham. I'm all set on that. I just don't. I'm not sure if he's the same player he was before the injury. He carries a ton of money. I just don't know if he's that same kind of player. I would probably stay away from him, quite honestly. Yeah, I mean, I think if you want to make an upgrade at receiver, like find that true number one. And like in years past when we went out and made that move for Aqib Talib, that move has to be there to be made. I mean, you can't just go, oh, well, I want Aaron Donald, I want Bobby Wagner. I mean, you got to have guys that are in similar situations that are actually on the trade block. It's not like Madden where you can just manually trade for anybody you want to. But and then also, you said it, you have to be right there. It has to be the piece that's going to put you over the top. Right now, even adding a top tier receiver like that, not sure that really puts you over the top this year. You're still really young, still got a few holes you need to fill in the roster this year. I think you just focus on depth more than anything, more so than finding that one guy that's going to be the last piece to the puzzle. So I expect probably a pretty quiet trade deadline. If anything, maybe maybe another corner. I know they signed a couple guys to the practice squad last week. Maybe some depth additions, if anything.
Yeah, and I think another way you kind of have to look at this too is it's not the off season, guys. You know what I'm saying? Like we are mid season. When you're in practice, you're not doing what you would do in OTAs, a mini camp, training camp, and helping learn the ropes and the playbook and the chemistry. You are preparing for what you're going to be facing in your upcoming matchup. And especially at the receiver position, to add a guy into that mix this late in the season, I just don't think people understand that takes a lot of chemistry.
It's not plug and play. Yeah, like the chemistry. I mean, they were talking about on Get Up this morning, they were talking about, with Jameis Winston going out to the Saints, call Cam Newton. I was like, well, I mean, by the time you even get him up to speed, it's going to be like week 13. A, is even a player that can really execute that kind of offense. B, by the time he's even comfortable with the playbook, season's just about over. You can't just throw guys into the fire. Again, it's not Madden. It's a lot more moving parts to things like that. Chemistry matters. Reps matter. Knowing the system matters. All things like that. It's not really that easy sometimes.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Like you said, it's I mean, maybe at cornerback, if you want to make a trade like that, cornerback is a little bit more straightforward, especially with the Patriots. They don't play a lot of zone. It's really, here's your man, play your man. But with the receivers, it's learn the playbook, learn the chemistry, learn where you have to be, get on the same page as the quarterback. Especially
defense is a little plug and play. Offensively, it takes a lot more rhythm and cohesion and knowing the playbooks, things like that. Definitely, defense a little bit more plug and play. That's why I kind of lead toward draft defense, sign offense, because at least I know, an NFL offensive player, guys that's been a starter in the league, at least he gets NFL concepts. He's proven that he understands things like that. Sometimes that transition for offensive players from college to pro, that's really what gets them tripped up and causes them to be a bust, is they don't really make that transition between concepts in college to concepts in the pros. Whereas defense is a little bit more see ball, get ball. It's a little bit more plug and play in that aspect.
Yeah, and I mean we're talking about the Patriots buying here. We're not even talking that much about selling. I mean, maybe they go ahead and they ship someone off last minute. I mean, there's not a lot of guys that they could ship off, I would say, at this point, especially because they're not out of the picture. They are literally the team on the top bubble to squeeze it to the playoffs. Yeah. Like we said, everything is still there. But the only guy that really at this point right now that I could think of is maybe they go ahead and they trade N'Keal Harry, because he's, what are you going to miss out on with N'Keal Harry? You know, I think the longer you wait, the less you're going to get for him. He showed a little bit of a promise this past week. Maybe that gives you like a conditional 5th instead of a 6th round pick or something like that. Not to bump it up too much, but maybe you get a little bit something more. And I forget who it was that reported, but they said that, you know, the Patriots are completely open to trading N'Keal Harry. It just depends on what call do they get. And I don't think they're going to be asking for a 1st, 2nd, 3rd round pick.
Oh no.
So I think at this point, it's does the value outweigh the potential you're getting with N'Keal Harry? And at this point, I would definitely say that a 5th round pick more than does that.
Yeah, it's really, you know, about return on investment. You know, just like that. Is it worth? You know, maybe sticking it out with him and seeing if he can continue to develop as a better NFL receiver, or would you rather try and, you know, take your chances with that 5th or 6th round pick, where essentially, you know, you're talking about, you know, depth on the back end of your roster. If anything, like you said, nobody's given up a top tier draft pick for N'Keal Harry. You'd be lucky to get a 5th or a 6th. Yeah, I almost wonder, you know, based on what he's done the last couple of weeks, I almost wonder if it's better to just, you know, ride it out with him. Maybe he, you know, something turns on in his head. You know, he turns a corner possibly. You know, as far as what they would get in return for him, I'm kind of thinking about going back and forth. I'm kind of thinking about what would be better to, you know, either maybe stick it out with him or, you know, try and get that late round draft pick. But I think that's all you're looking at getting if they do trade him, is maybe, you know, late round, you know, maybe 5th or a 6th.
Yeah, I completely agree. So thank you again, Felipe, and everybody for those huge donations here. Let's kind of squeeze back in here to the Chargers matchup. Still on offense here. We talked about Kendrick Bourne a little bit. He's been balling out as of late. And I really think that he continues to build that rapport with Mac Jones, which we've been waiting to see. You know, I was there at training camp, and you could just tell from the moment they signed Kendrick Bourne, I said, this is going to be the piece for the New England Patriots. He fits the scheme. He fits what they want to do. I actually said they should sign him last year. Then he was a restricted free agent back then. So the 49ers still kept the claims to him. And then a year later, he's a unrestricted free agent, and the Patriots claim him. But struggles with ball security yet again. We talked about this. Struggles with ball security yet again. Loses another fumble in the red zone. But that wasn't his only mistake in this game. He also almost forces an interception in the end zone after losing his footing. So loses a fumble and almost causes an interception in the red zone.
I forgot about that one. Yeah, it's a good. Yeah, that ball should have been caught. You know, I thought, yeah, he did stumble a little bit, but he had a good 2 hands on it. Yeah, and like you said, that almost, you know, things like that. If a ball gets tipped up in the air, more often than not in the NFL, it's going to get picked off. They're pretty lucky that it just fell harmlessly to the turf there, and then the fumble. You know, ball security, you know, it's just so paramount. You know, games in the NFL, they're lost more often than they are won. You know, it's about who makes the least amount of mistakes. You know, that's why the Patriots have won so many games throughout the last 2 decades. Yeah, they had the greatest quarterback of all time, but they played smart football. They executed. They didn't beat themselves. You know, that's all that stuff is the Patriot way. And you know, in essence, you know, you just on a team that's really, you know, frankly, not as talented as some of the other teams they're going to play. They're not on the talent level of a team like a Tennessee, a Buffalo, you know, Kansas City offensively. You know, you can't afford to make those kind of mistakes. Your room for error is much, much smaller when you're a younger and less talented team, when you're still kind of growing. So that's going to be paramount going forward. If they want to make a playoff run, definitely going to have to value the ball a lot more than they have this year, kind of respect ball security and really put a bigger emphasis on that, because it seems like, you know, like I said, 6 fumbles already this year. That's one more than we had all of last year. Can't have it. That's just a killer. Can't be doing stuff like that. The penalties, the Haran hold gets the Damian Harris touchdown taken off the board. Can't have things like that. Again, you know, you're going to have penalties here and there, but you got to minimize that sort of thing. Can't have them in crucial spots either. That's more important than any other thing. You know, situational football late in the game, end of half situations. Those are the times where you really, really need to execute and, you know, get points. Those little swing opportunities right there. So yeah, I mean, they need to start improving in those areas. But I think they're on the right track. You know, like I said, I think they're cleaning it up week by week. It's not as bad as it was a month ago or so. I don't think they win that game yesterday a month ago. Yeah. So it is trending in the right direction. I like what I'm seeing on that regard, but it does need to get a little bit better.
Yeah, and I would say even in another positive direction from my next point here, Ramondre Stevenson, active in this game. Didn't seem like we saw him a lot for sure. I'll be curious to see a snap count. Probably isn't much. Was active 2 weeks ago. Showed pretty good promise. Inactive last week. Active this week. it really seems like they're going back and
Yeah.
forth each week between J.J. Taylor and Ramondre Stevenson. But Ramondre Stevenson continues to show really good ability as a receiving back when he's given the chance. I mean, it wasn't anything crazy, but a 5-yard completion to him down the sideline, he's showing really good promise as a receiving back as we go forward, which I think is really going to help him get on the field in the future. Good as a running back. He's showing promise as a receiving back. He just has to work on ball security and picking up blitzes.
Yeah, that was probably one of the biggest things with him coming out of Oklahoma was his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. You look at him, you think of like a downhill thumping running back like a LeGarrette Blount, but he's actually got some pretty quick feet. He's got some receiving ability. He might just have the best hands out of any running back currently on the roster. Obviously, take away James White, not included in that category, but out of guys like Damian Harris, Bolden, J.J. Taylor, his hands might be as good, if not better, than any of theirs. Yeah, I'd like to see him get a few more opportunities going forward. Like you said, they're kind of playing tag in and out between him and J.J. Taylor, who's active, who's inactive. I don't know if that's like practice related or performance related, anything like that. But I think Ramondre definitely has the most upside out of any of the running backs. Not named Damian Harris. I would like to see him get some more opportunities.
Yeah, I agree. And looks like we have another huge one here from the guy, the brother, the MVP, the GOAT, the king, Reggie P. My God. Dear Lord, you are
It's like a
popping
bidding
off.
war now. Him and the other guy. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Him and the other guy is a betting war. And I think Reggie's in the lead for sure. But Reggie says, this is really good. This is a really good question. I think you'll like this one. How does the online shift when Trent Brown gets back? And do they keep on Wenu at tackle? This was actually my next point after. Well, it wasn't exactly this, but it goes into my next point offensively. Was the Patriots found continuity on the offensive line? You found your 5 starters. So he asks an excellent question. When Trent Brown gets back, does Trent Brown come back? And if he does, do you keep on Wenu at tackle or do you plug Trent Brown back in, who has only played half a game this entire season?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, me personally, I don't know if they would do this or not. What I would do, I know, Trent Brown in 2019, his first stint with us, he played left tackle the majority of the year. I think that I would actually put him at left tackle. I would move Isaiah Wynn into guard because I think he's struggling so bad at tackle right now. I just can't bear to watch him out there on the left side. He looks just totally inept. Owenu's doing so good at right tackle. I would keep him out there. You leave Shaq Mason alone. Leave David Andrews alone. I'm of the opinion that Isaiah Wynn might be a better guard than a tackle. It can't be any worse. I mean, with what he's been this year, it's like ever since he got here his rookie year, he's just steadily declined. I'd like to see him how he'd do at guard. Trent at least has some precedent, some history at left tackle. We know that he at least once upon a time was able to hold that down not too long ago. I would try that out first, see what you can do. And if that doesn't really work out, maybe you go back to how you had it week 1, Trent at right tackle, move Owenu back to guard. And then obviously Isaiah Wynn and Shaq Mason at the left tackle and right guard respectively, and David Andrews at center. But I would like to see Wynn at guard. I think that might be an improvement for him. That might be a better fit.
So this actually worries me with the whole Trent Brown potentially coming back because, we saw for the majority of this season, the Patriots really shifting guys along this offensive line, not even game to game, but even quarter to quarter. And I think it's really what screwed up this offense a lot. Dante Scarnecchia, Belichick, they really push continuity, which essentially, for those who don't know what that is, that's basically rolling with the same guys. You're rolling with the same team. You're not switching guys in and out and in and out. You're getting comfortable with the same guys in the same place. And that's not what the Patriots have been doing. They've been shuffling this offensive line, this entire season, like it's the preseason, essentially. And that you can't do that in the regular season. I think over the last couple of weeks, you found that continuity. You found those 5 stars on the offensive line, and that's why it got better. Personally, I would say with Isaiah Wynn is if you do want to try him at guard, I would say do that in the offseason. I personally wouldn't say do that in season. Isaiah Wynn hasn't played guard since college. So, we haven't even seen him get snaps in preseason, regular season, in training camp. He's always been a tackle. I definitely wouldn't play with that concept right now. I think that's something definitely if you do want to check out, maybe you do that in the offseason. But even then, they paid him. They picked up that 5th-year option, and they're giving him tackle level money. And if you're going to move him to guard, you are overpaying him 100% as a guard also. So, I mean, I like the idea of keeping Ted Karras at left guard. I like keeping Onwenu there at right tackle. I definitely wouldn't mess with the guards. I think Ted Karras and Shaq Mason have both been really good at their respective positions at guard. I think David Andrews has been, pretty good there at center. Obviously, you don't want to mess with your center at all. So I would definitely, obviously, keep David Andrews there. I definitely think it's the tackle positions that really bring up questions. And I would say, look, keep Trent Brown as a I hate to say it because of the money what you gave up, but I hate to say it, but you keep him as a swing tackle / insurance policy at this point. It's kind of, you just dug your own grave. That's kind of what you're getting yourself into. If Isaiah Wynn is struggling that bad, then go ahead, try to see what you have there with Trent Brown at left tackle. But I wouldn't shuffle the offensive line completely.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Definitely. Yeah, it's a lot of it's a lot of money to be paying a guy, like you said, for a swing tackle. It really sucks, but at this point, like you said, they kind of made their bed with that. Now they got to lay in it, and they kind of knew that going in. It was an issue with Trent Brown. I think his tenure with the Raiders, he was plagued by calf injuries, and he kind of had a propensity to let it linger on a little bit. If they can get anything out of him, I mean, great. But at this point, it's like I honestly don't even expect him to come back at this point. They might just outright cut him. If they bring him back, maybe it's as a backup, like you said, a swingman left tackle type or a swing tackle type of thing. My expectations for him are just totally gone at this point. Anything we get out of him would be great, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's super unfortunate what happened this entire offseason. And he was a guy I think we all had a lot of expectations for. He was super hyped to come back to the Patriots. He even said hopefully it's longer than his last tenure with the team, but he's still showing those concerns that he had with the Raiders and not being able to get onto the field. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I would say the Patriots definitely lost that trade. They gave up still a decent amount for Trent Brown, and they're still giving him a decent amount of money. Do they cut him? Do they try to trade him before the trade deadline? Because maybe he's still supposed to be coming off the IR I believe this week. He should be able to come off the injured reserve. But again, is that injury he has, again, should not be season ending, but maybe it's something lingering still somehow for some reason, and he doesn't play the rest of the season. But at this point,
that's a good point. I didn't even think of the trade.
At this point, I would consider trading him. I would see what you can get for Trent Brown at this point, because
maybe that's why they've sat him down so long, as they're trying to trade him. That's not even something I considered. That's a pretty good point. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the return you would get.
I would say at this point,
ride it out with him?
Yeah, I mean, he's in contract year. Remember when he got traded, he switched that deal up. He's in contract year. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the season. At this point, I don't care if you get a 6th or 7th round pick.
Yeah,
it's better than not playing him and then him being a free agent at the end of the season.
That's what you'd probably get in a compensatory pick. Is probably like a 5th or a 6th round. So you might as well just take the guarantee, take the bird in the hand, and what you can get out of him while you still can.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So the offensive line was performing, like we said, pretty well. Kind of my last point here about the offensive line. They only allowed 1 sack and 4 tackles for loss, which is less than last week that they had against the Jets. I would say Mac was under pressure a decent amount, but I do think also that the Chargers defense, especially that defensive line, it is good, but I also think that they were trying to throw the kitchen sink at Mac a little bit. They were blitzing a good amount. It wasn't just, 3-4 guys rushing constantly. They were blitzing him a good amount. But I would say no big negative plays occurred along this offensive line. No huge, or I shouldn't say no stupid plays happen. I would say stupid penalties continue to still happen, like we talked about along this offensive line. But nothing big, no big sacks, no huge tackles for loss. So again, continuity along this offensive line. I think we've definitely seen improvement along this offensive line, like we talked about here. But moving on to the defense, opening drive. That opening drive defense concerned me. That if you look at the first 1 to 2 drives here that happened for each team, I was like, dear God, this is going to be another L. This is going to be another L for the team. And then they ended up turning it around, obviously. But that opening drive there was big. They allowed that big reception to Keenan Allen on a blown coverage by J.C. Jackson. Was that like 40-some yards?
Yeah.
And they didn't allow a lot of big plays defensively. They allowed that the J.C. Jackson, or not the J.C. Jackson, but the Keenan Allen play. They allowed that big run, and then I think they allowed another pretty big reception at one point. But
I think Eckler had like a 25-yarder in the fourth quarter, or a late third, early fourth quarter, something like that. No, Eckler had a big one at one point there in the second half.
Yeah, it was something like that. But other than that, they were averaging the Chargers offense. They were averaging like 4 yards, I think, per play. So outside of those big plays, they really did hold the Chargers offense fairly well.
Yeah, it was good overall, good defense overall. Like I said, it came out a little bit shaky. But, typically early in the game, like that first drive of the game is, like scripted. So maybe they came out with some schematic things that they knew we were a little bit weak at. I think after the game kind of settled in, the defense really, found their legs, and they were able to fly to the football, react to it. I thought they did a great job on Keenan Allen, especially over the middle of the field. They really didn't let him take over the game. Had a few catches early, but after that, he wasn't really heard from much after that. Austin Eckler, he had a decent game, both rushing and receiving, but nothing really game breaking. He had that one, I think he had like a 25-yard run after the catch there in the third quarter. But yeah, I mean, the three big plays. I mean, outside of that, I thought the defense was fast. I thought they got after Herbert really well. Judon 1.5 sacks, now 8 on the year. Christian Barmore had a sack, forced a couple holding penalties. Obviously, Adrian Phillips, 2 clutch interceptions. Did have a couple busted coverages there. Yeah, like you said, the Keenan Allen play, J.C. Jackson kind of fell down. But I thought outside of a couple mistakes here and there, I thought defensively it was outstanding. I thought the defense really planted their flag, really won the game for them.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, and you look at, we talk about Keenan Allen here, but Mike Williams this season, dear God, where did Mike Williams come from? He's one of the best receivers in the league right now. He's a top 10 statistically, a top 10 receiver right now, but the Patriots hold him to his second worst game of the year. J.C. Jackson, well, I can't say only J.C. Jackson because there was, and we'll get into this, but they were really the defense using a lot of different moving pieces. One guy wasn't just on the same guy the entire game, but we saw a lot of J.C. Jackson on him, but only held him to 2 receptions on 5 targets for only 19 yards. Again, Mike Williams' second worst game of the year. So I thought that was a really good game here by the defense to shut those guys down.
I saw a breakdown of all the DBs and like what passes they allowed and things like that. Yeah, I have it right here. All right, it says J.C. Jackson, 1 out of 4, 41 yards allowed. Jalen Mills, 3 out of 4, 56 yards, a touchdown, and a pass breakup. Miles Bryant, 2 for 3, 21 yards, a pass breakup. Joejuan Williams, one completion for 5 yards. Juwan Bentley, 1 for 2, 12 yards. Kyle Van Noy, 1 completion for 6 yards and a pass breakup. Kyle Duggar, 1 completion, 13 yards. Dietrich Wise had a pass breakup. Adrian Phillips there, 1 out of 3 for 5 yards. The interception return for a touchdown, 2 interceptions on the day. And then Devin McCourty was 0 of 2 pass breakups. So overall, pretty good by the secondary. Nobody really got picked on. I know Jalen Mills, it kind of stands out because of the touchdown late in the game. I thought all around it was a good day for the secondary.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. For the, like I said, there were some big splash plays, but for the most part, you're not shutting down, but you're containing Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, 2 of the best receivers in the league today. It's not an easy thing to do, especially with the secondary that the Patriots currently have and the issues they deal with there. I would say
Cook too. He didn't really do anything.
Yes, Jared Cook. He had some I don't want to say big plays, but he had some important plays. But for the most part, he was a big guy to shut down. He's not an easy guy to shut down by any means. He's still a very good tight end, and they were able to, like you said, for the most part, keep him pretty quiet.
I think it was the first offensive play of the game for the Chargers. I think it was when they hit Jared Cook on a crossing route, and Juwan Bentley was in coverage, and I just like held my head in my hands. I was like, please don't tell me that Juwan Bentley is going to be man-to-man on Jared Cook all day. This is going to be really, really bad. But thankfully it wasn't.
We would have been absolutely murdered if that happened. But guys, big shout out here real quick to the sponsors of this video and the sponsors of this channel, betonline.ag. No one that me or anyone else I personally have talked to trusts BetOnline more than any other betting source that they could possibly find online. Now, BetOnline is back. They're better than ever as all eyes are on the gridiron teams for another football season. And with a new updated site and interface and even more odds and props with contests, BetOnline is the #1 source for everything football, guys. All you have to do is head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 100% off welcome bonus, guys. That is double your initial deposit just for signing up. Don't forget to use that promo code NFL100. Guys, from all the sports you could think of, football, basketball, boxing, your favorite Vegas casino games, do not wait to take advantage of all of the great, amazing offers still available for the 2021 season, guys. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts.
Get that parlay.
Yeah, 100%. But I would say defensively, the bigger struggles came here run wise. When you look at the run stopping, the team let up 163 yards on only 20 attempts, 64 yards on 11 attempts for Eckler. He was averaging 5.8 yards per carry, and then allowed 79 yards on 3 attempts for Justin Jackson, who averaged 26.3 yards per carry. Definitely not a great showing. Obviously, those numbers are helped out by a couple of big runs, but still, nonetheless, Austin Eckler averaging 5.8 yards and Justin Jackson averaging 26.3 yards. Not a great showing here by the run defense. But I will say, too, is the Patriots, and you look at the personnel they put on the field, they definitely made this a stop the passing type of defensive scheme. If you want to beat us running the ball, okay. You want to have a couple of good runs, okay. But we know what your offense is built off of. We know you have Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Jared Cook. You have a lot of good receiving ability. Justin Herbert is a really good passing quarterback. This is one of the best passing offenses in the entire NFL today. We're going to try to shut you down as best we can. Don't let you have big plays down the field. So again, I do think that this defensive scheme, this defensive play calling really was mainly to stop the passing and their passing attack. But still, nonetheless, you can't 100% deny the fact that this was not a great showing at stopping the run here.
Yeah, I mean, I think they would have liked to have done a better job on Eckler. Like I said, that was probably their main focal point going into the game. I mean, just watching them, throughout the season, a little bit of tape on him, it seemed like they kind of go as Austin Eckler goes. When they have him going, they're a lot more efficient than when he's not going. But yeah, I mean, big number against the run. You'd like to see that a little bit better. They did give up those couple big plays. I think that kind of skewed it a little bit. But I mean, I think they're better than where they were early in the season. I think they were getting
100%.
run on. They couldn't stop it when they needed to. I think now they can at least stop it when they need to. They're giving up some yards on the ground. But again, like you said, that might have been, philosophically, you want to kind of err toward taking away the passing game from the Chargers. Don't give up the big play. Give them some of that underneath stuff. There might be some hidden yardage to be found in the running game with a soft box. Maybe we're playing a little bit further off the line of scrimmage, things like that. It's kind of, you got to always look at the context of it. But I thought, yeah, it was not a great day against the run. I don't think it was terrible.
No.
But a couple of those big plays, like the Justin Jackson run, man, I hate to say it. I love Dante Hightower, but man, he just looks slow out there. He just looks so slow. He got juked out in the hole one-on-one. He just got totally turned around. He's just not keeping up well at this point. In the middle of the field, I'd like to see him maybe used as more of a pass rusher type of role, but we don't really have a lot of depth at linebacker either. Definitely something we're going to be addressing in the offseason. Got to get faster at linebacker. That's probably the number one thing on defense. That and cornerbacks. But yeah, good. Not a bad day for the run defense. I wouldn't say it's a good day either, though.
Yeah, I would say you made a really great point. I would say that the lack of speed here on the Patriots defense, especially with the linebackers, is essentially what was killing the team. I think Belichick also knows that, and he said, well, we know this is a pass first. It's pass first league, but it's definitely a pass first team that the Chargers have here. Again, statistically, you look at them and they're one of the best passing attacks in the entire NFL. And so he kind of had to look at this as a factor of, well, Juwan Bentley, Dante Hightower, do I keep them out there? Yes, they're gonna help stop the run more than if you put Adrian Phillips, Kyle Duggar in the box playing hybrid linebacker. But also those guys are slower. So they can, the Chargers can really mix things up and just pass the ball on those guys and continue to move the chains, and running the ball won't even be needed at the end of the day. So I think Belichick kind of looked at it as a depiction of, what, let's play a little bit more of Kyle Duggar. Let's play a little bit more of Adrian Phillips, put him in hybrid linebacker, close to the line of scrimmage, play those guys, essentially make the tackle when you can, whether it's, behind the line of scrimmage, whether it's 2 yards or whether you're allowing 5 yards, an average to these running backs. Make the tackle and put those guys, those faster guys on the field so you can at least stop the passing attack and make the tackle when you can, in the running game.
Yeah, I think, that's pretty much, I think, where the league is going in terms of, pass defense. Instead of having your linebackers on the field for all 3 downs, take them off, run out some, you run out your safeties, maybe bigger safeties, or you find some linebackers that are a little bit, undersized but more athletic. I think you try to find those guys, maybe even later rounds in the draft. Maybe they're a safety, in college, but they're really not fast enough to play it at the NFL level. Maybe you try and convert them to a passing down, a sub linebacker. I think you've seen a lot more of that around the league. And I think that's kind of what they thought when they drafted Kyle Duggar. I think they kind of see him in that mold of a versatile piece more so than a true safety, true pass coverage safety. I think they view him as like a Patrick Chung inside the box, bumping the tight ends when they get out into their routes, kind of playing physical in and around the line of scrimmage. I think that's definitely where the league is going. It's definitely where the Patriots need to get going, get some more speed in there. Because like I said, Jawan Bentley gets exploited in coverage far too many times. Like I said, great to have him against the run, but we got to remember, like Bill, it's not 1990s at the Giants anymore. You need linebackers that can run. Not the game's not played in a phone booth anymore. You got to have some more speed out there on the field. Definitely want to see that this offseason.
Yeah, and definitely to kind of back up what we were saying about this really being a defensive scheme to stop the passing attack here for the Chargers. This was one of the worst showings passing wise and offensively that the Chargers have had this season. Now, no Chargers receiver went over 77 yards. The best player was Keenan Allen, who was targeted 11 times with 6 receptions. The Chargers receivers were targeted a total of 34 times. 34 times they were targeted in this game, and the Patriots only allowed 18 receptions for 223 yards. Again, that just shows the fact that New England's main focus was to stop this passing attack.
Yeah, and I think defensively we got in Herbert's head early and often. I think we had him spinning a little bit, showing pressure, dropping out, kind of, showing coverage pre-snap and, blitzing him at the last second. I think we just kind of had him kind of spinning a little bit, and it really affected him the entire game. 2 times now, we played Justin Herbert, and he's really struggled against Bill Belichick defense. So he might have, all around, the secondary did a great job in pass coverage all day for the most part. A couple plays here and there, but overall they took away what they wanted to do. Keenan Allen in the middle of the field, Mike Williams, the big play that those fade routes down the sideline, Jared Cook over the middle of the field, even Eckler out of the backfield. I think overall about as good of a job as you can possibly do. Chargers have a lot of talent on offense. It's tough to take away all those guys. I think they did a very reasonable job of doing that. We essentially held them to 17 points too. I mean, the touchdown at the end was kind of garbage time type of touchdown. I thought we did a very, very good job on them overall, keeping them out of the end zone, bending but not breaking. That's kind of one of the calling cards of Bill throughout the years. Could always be better, but I think overall it was a very good performance defending the pass yesterday. And I'm not sure if a lot of people thought the Patriots really had that in them. I know everybody's kind of anointing Justin Herbert as the next great young quarterback. I kind of think of him as Wish.com Joe Burrow. I think he's got a ways to go before he's really taken over the league and deserves that kind of credit that he was getting like Monday Night Football against the Raiders. I think he was maybe getting a little overhyped, a little overrated. Great young player. I just don't know if he's completely where people want to put him yet.
Yeah. And I mean, I think Belichick is doing something defensively here that he's done a little bit in the past, in a sense. Like, a few years ago in the AFC Championship game when you would play the Kansas City Chiefs and you were having to go up against Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Belichick, for the most part, you keep Stephon Gilmore on the same guy. You keep Jason McCourty on the same guy. But when it came to Tyreek Hill, they'd kind of pass off the defenders. Belichick's doing something a little bit different here. I think this is kind of how he stopped for the most part, stop the Buccaneers offense, try to contain the Cowboys offense, and that's giving different defensive packages. We talked a lot about continuity on the offense, but it's really the opposite on the defense. You don't really want an opposing quarterback to get comfortable, to be able to read what your defense alignment is going to be time after time. So again, we talk about continuity on the offense and the offensive line. You want those same guys, but Belichick's doing something defensively where he's giving different defensive packages in the sense of, okay, right now I'm going to put JC Jackson on Keenan Allen. Next play, I'm going to put him on Mike Williams so that, it's confusing for Justin Herbert saying, all right, well, which guy's on which guy, what's his strengths, what's his weaknesses, how can I go about this, how can I expose them? And I think that's really been working out for Bill Belichick and the Patriots defense as of late, especially without having a true Stephon Gilmore number 1 cornerback. Kind of switching these guys up is definitely confusing these opposing quarterbacks that are elite offenses.
Yeah, got to mix it up. Always have to mix up coverages, mix up matchups. You can't trot one thing out there. I think Bill said it in press conference a couple of weeks ago. I think it was against after Dallas. Somebody asked him about the play calling. He goes, well, you can't run the same play every time. That's kind of stupid. And he's right. I mean, he was being kind of snarky when he said that, but he's totally right. You have to mix coverages, show different things, disguise really well. especially in this era of offensive football, man. Quarterbacks are just so much further ahead of the curve than they were even like 15, 20 years ago coming into the league. These guys are almost ready to play almost immediately. Guys used to have to like sit for 2 or 3 years just to learn the NFL game, the verbiage, the speed, everything. You got to treat all these guys like seasoned pros. Really, you got to throw everything you can at them. And like against Tampa, we threw pretty much every coverage known to man at the Bucs offense that night, and that's what it took to hold them to. I believe what was it, 18, 19 points, 18 points, whatever it was.
Yeah, something like that.
You got to mix stuff up. Bill's as good as it gets when it comes to things like that. Still got it when it comes to calling defense.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think this is something me and you will agree on, because I don't know what it is. But like me and you are just on like the same wavelength, because I will think something and then like within a few hours or a couple days, you'll text me like the exact same thing that I was thinking. And that is Adrian Phillips, man. This guy, I was thinking this offseason. This guy needs a contract extension. I'm kind of surprised they have not given Adrian Phillips a contract extension. And Adrian Phillips is the reason the Patriots came out with this win. Now, again, football's a team win, but without those 2 interceptions, without that pick 6, this is a very, very different game. Again, let's remember that the Chargers did score that late touchdown. Without that Adrian Phillips pick 6, this game is very, very different.
Yeah, he had his imprints on this game the whole day. And, he's actually a former Charger. I forgot about that until like a little bit after the game yesterday. I was like, oh, yeah, he was a former Charger. Not only him, Hunter Henry as well. He caught the onside kick to really effectively seal the game. I thought that was kind of apropos. But, yeah, I mean, with the uncertainty in the secondary going into next year, a lot of guys, free agents, they need to get Adrian Phillips taken care of. They need to get that deal made. Clearly got a lot of good football in him. Who knows what's going to happen with Devin McCourty? Is he going to else maybe we choose to go in a different direction? JC Jackson, he's entering free agency. I think Jonathan Jones is pretty much the only solid guy we have under contract, and he'll be coming off of shoulder surgery. So I think there's a lot of turmoil going to be in the secondary this offseason. So I think first and foremost, the first line of business is to get Adrian Phillips a contract extension. Need to get him under wraps. He should be the leader of the secondary going into the next few years. I mean, Kyle Duggar, got him back there too. I still don't really view him as a true pass coverage safety, more of kind of that rover around the line of scrimmage, that little sub linebacker type of thing. I think Adrian Phillips is clearly your best safety going into the next couple of years. They need to get him re-signed.
I 100% agree. And I know a lot of people say that Kyle Duggar is the next Patrick Chung, but you really look at it, and Patrick Chung's playing more of a Duron Harmon, Devin McCourty role, playing more so free safety. Adrian Phillips is the one going up against these tight ends, playing, hybrid linebacker. I mean, he's the guy that has been most successful going up against tight ends. So really, if anything, I would say Adrian Phillips is really that next Patrick Chung.
Yeah. Yep.
But we did get another donation here. Die Hard Pats fan says, what are your predictions for the rest of the season? And say we make it to the playoffs, what do you think the outcome will be? I will actually here. Let me pull this up again. I know we did this last week, but kind of for some reference to help everybody out, let me pull up the remainder here of the schedule. Let me get this out real quick. Do you kind of want to answer that one first? What are your predictions for the rest of the season? And if they do make the playoffs, kind of what do you think that outcome is gonna be?
Yeah, I mean, this one, I thought if we were to win this game, we would be able to make a lot of hay in the next coming weeks. I thought, maybe a 4-1 stretch. I think it's, very reasonable. At Carolina, we're already installed as early favorites in that game. The Panthers, certainly not a team that you would worry about. I mean, if you don't take them seriously, they can beat you. But I think the Patriots are a better team right now. Cleveland, they're very disjointed right now. They've got a lot of talent, but they're not playing as a team. A lot of that talent's not really manifesting itself in wins and losses. The Falcons, again, you can't take anybody lightly in this league, but, no great shakes there either. Tennessee, they just lost Derrick Henry. Does that kind of send their offense out the window? Buffalo's going to be tough. The Colts you don't know what you're getting out of them. I think that looking at it now, I think we can be, if everything goes well, 8-4 going into Monday Night Football at Buffalo. That's going to be a tough one. I think you probably drop that game at Buffalo to go to 8-5. At Indy, I think you win that one 9-5. I think you can split with Buffalo. It's got to go really well, but I think they have that in them this year because they almost They almost split with them last year. The game in Gillette was a total washout, but at Buffalo they could have won that game. It was a lot like the Dolphins game in Week 1 this year. We were driving late, and then we had that Cam Newton fumble that kind of ruined things later. I think we can get a split with the Bills there, go to 10-5, and then Jacksonville and Miami. Those are kind of toss-up games. I mean, Jacksonville, they might be playing much better toward the end of the year. Trevor Lawrence getting a lot more reps under the belt there. Miami, they have a terrible record right now, but they always give the Patriots problems there. If everything goes well, and being incredibly optimistic, I could say maybe maybe 11-6 tops, but I think it's probably closer to 10-7. But I think we have a good stretch of games here coming up in the next 3 to 4 weeks. I think we can get some wins.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think that sweet spot is kind of 10 to 11 wins. I think, you're lucky to get 12, and I'm not saying it's impossible, because I don't think it's impossible, but I think you are asking for a lot of this team. You look at Carolina, like you said, they are not the team that started the season earlier. I think that's a dub. Cleveland, Baker will not be there. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure how long he's supposed to be out. I know it might be season ending.
Well,
but
he played yesterday, but they're not looking too good offensively. They look very out of rhythm.
Oh, did he play yesterday?
Yeah, he come back and play. Yeah, he had the shoulder harness on. I got to give him credit on that. That was pretty tough for him to go out and play. So I guess that would mean that he's going to play in our game, week 10. But Cleveland just very disjointed right now on offense. Who knows what's going on with them? They got a lot of moving parts that aren't really coherent right now. But you never know what you're going to get, man. It's a week-to-week league. You're really only as good as the previous week's final score. But I think just based on what we've seen now, yeah, I think 11 wins optimistically is attainable. Like I said, 12 is going to be really tough. That pretty much means going 8-1 down the stretch. It's going to be hard to do. But I think 10-11. I think we're right in that area.
Yeah, and I mean, even if Baker does play, for a guy that people were talking about potentially having a season-ending injury that requires surgery
he'll be compromised
to play in that game, he's 100% compromised. I mean, honestly, you got to think Case Keenum is pretty bad if you think that banged up Baker Mayfield is going to be that much better at that point. So you're not getting pure Baker. Like you said, they're a little bit disjointed. They're a team you have to take seriously, kind of like the Carolina Panthers. If you don't take them seriously, you're definitely going to lose that game. I would say they're definitely tougher than the Carolina Panthers at this point.
Yeah.
But I definitely think there's signs that are pointing in favor of the New England Patriots. The Atlanta Falcons, I'm not worried about that game.
No.
Offensively, they're good. Defensively, there's really nothing there. Tennessee, I would say easily this is a loss for the Patriots, but with Derrick Henry out, this definitely does change the game. Adrian Peterson is still a really good running back, but nowhere compared to what Derrick Henry is. We have to see how they're going to work the next several weeks to kind of really depict how this game is going to turn out. Right now, it's kind of wishful thinking until we see, the next 3 weeks until we play them, how they're going to perform without Derrick Henry there. And a really interesting point about Buffalo. Me and you both have said, we think that they'll go and they'll split even here with the Buffalo Bills. And you got to hope they do, because if they don't, I think that's kind of a good potential outlook on where exactly this team is going to make it through into the playoffs. But originally I had week 13 being the L, week 16 being the W, because you know what, that's at home after the bye week and whatnot. But if we're really going to look at how the Patriots historically and statistically are playing right now this season, week 13 will probably be the dub, and then
road is home and home is road at this point.
Week 16 will probably be the L for the Patriots, but I would expect one of those to be a loss. I mean, if they somehow miraculously pull out both wins there, I mean that
would be huge.
That says so much about this team.
That would be huge just for their confidence going forward. I mean, just the outlook of the division in like the next 5 to 10 years. Buffalo, they believe they've got it on lockdown now. They think it's their turf now. But if we were able to sweep them this year, I mean, that would really plant a seed of doubt in their minds. That would be outstanding.
Oh my God, 100%. And I mean, you look at the Colts here. They're up and down too. They're a very inconsistent team. I think this is definitely a winnable game here. So I do think New England should come out with that game, but I think it really depends on how they play. Are they going to play how they played against the Texans, or are they going to play how they played against the Jets and the Chargers the last couple of weeks? I think that's very dependent. And then I think Jacksonville and Miami, you finish 2-0 with those games. You always split with Miami. You're definitely winning this game. Miami's only win of the season is against the Patriots week 1. That is the
It's
only win that they have. And this team,
so
this team for the
aggravating.
Patriots, this team for the Patriots has come a long way from week one, and Miami has taken steps backwards. So those final 2 weeks, I definitely say are dubs. So I see the Patriots. I would say at most they lose 3 games. And realistically, I would say 1 to 2. I would say one to
yeah.
two is what they're likely going to lose here. So that's kind of how I see that whole thing panning out here. Let me put us back on the screen here. There we go.
I think, talking about the wild card standings and projecting, Patriots outlook, I think that if we actually do wind up missing out, that's going to be the one, that week one loss against Miami. That's going to be the one that really you kick yourself over, because again, they haven't won a game since then.
Yeah.
And we essentially had that game in the bag. That's going to be a killer if that's what really ultimately holds us out of the playoffs.
Yeah, and we had to deal with that last season with that aggravating, because if you remember last season, it was kind of like this. All right, this team has to lose and this team has to win, and things were going well for us, and then I forget what game it was we lost late into the season that we should have won, and it threw everything off, and it was just you had hope all season, but it was hanging on a thread because everything had to go perfect. You don't want that to have to be the case. I mean, try to win as much games as you can. This is definitely
you want to control your own destiny, but they kind of lost that. Last year, they kind of didn't take care of things that they should have, and when we kind of saw the result last year, very up and down team. It looks a little more steady this year. 4-4 through 8 games. I think we were 3-5 through 8 games last year. Definitely have a better direction on offense. Things look a lot more promising than they did a year ago at this time, which is great.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Diehard Pats fan, thank you so much for that big donation here. My final last point here with the defense here from this game was that the defensive line applied really great pressure. I mean, the Patriots were not rushing, they were not blitzing a good amount of the time, and they still put on really great pressure on Justin Herbert. You weren't seeing constant blitz packages with Dante Hightower, Jawan Bentley, Kyle Van Noy. From time to time, sure, of course, you're going to see that in games, but for the most part, they were rushing, 3-4 guys this entire game, and they got really good pressure. And I really think that the majority of this pressure, the reason why they got so much pressure was, well, of course, Matt Judon, but that's just a gimme at this point. I don't even need to touch upon that. But really, the interior specifically of this defensive line stood out, getting better and better each and every single week. Matthew Judon records 1.5 sacks. Lawrence Guy records 1, and like you mentioned, Christian Barmore recorded half a sack. I mean, this interior definitely showed out this week, and the defensive line in general, I think, definitely showed.
Yep, yeah, Barmore big, beating double teams. We haven't had a guy like that probably since Richard Seymour, maybe even Vince Wilfork. Vince wasn't really much of a pass rusher; he was more of a run stuffer. But man, it's so good to have that guy in the middle of the defensive line that can cause havoc, force double teams, and opens up things on the edges for other guys. It makes it so much easier for Judon. That's a guy that you really have to double team, and if you have to you can't double team everybody. That's going to cause a lot more open looks. It's kind of like in years past, like with the Gronkowski on offense. I called it kind of the Gronk theory. Even when he's out there, he doesn't have to be catching a lot of passes or making a lot of plays. Just the simple fact that he's out there is causing the coverage to be rolled to his side. It creates one-on-ones for guys like Julian Edelman and Danny Amendola years past. It's the same concept here on defense. I mean, we have a guy who's out there that you have to double team, and then there's another guy who's playing at a level where you have to consider double teaming him too. It's going to open up pass rushing lanes and looks for all kinds of other guys. Lawrence Guy getting in the mix yesterday, so that's really great to see. Great draft pick that's really paying off. Maybe not as much as Mac Jones, but Christian Barmore has basically been the defensive equivalent of Mac Jones so far this year. Just really big revelation. Great pickup in the second round. Like you said, I think a lot of people had him basically in the middle to late part of the first round at the very worst. The fact that we were able to get him in the second round, that's a total steal at this point.
I 120% agree with what you were saying. I think the team in general, I mean, we've talked about the offense, the receivers, and everything, but I mean, you really look at, the team in general from every aspect, even from the coaching and the play calling, everything each week, especially the last 2 weeks, has definitely gotten better. And this defensive line is really helping out with the lack of depth the Patriots have within that secondary. I definitely think this is helping out. And I mean, like you mentioned, I think this is, to me, very reminiscent of 2019, just in the sense of you have so many bodies at linebacker and more so on the defensive line. I don't remember the last time the Patriots defensive line had this much depth and this much talent along the defensive line, but each guy is helping the guy next to them get open. Lawrence Guy, Christian Barmore, Matt Judon. Honestly, I would absolutely love to see more of Josh Uche. I'm actually super disappointed we are not seeing more of Josh Uche because he showed out really well in the beginning of the season. I know he was in with a little bit of an injury, but he's someone that I definitely think could put up even better numbers with more opportunity. So I definitely would say that I am highly disappointed that we're not seeing more of Josh Uche. But I would say too that you look at Dietrich Wise, he's having a spectacular season. I would say this is the best season he's had since his rookie season. So I think this is a really great season for him coming off of a big contract extension that the New England Patriots gave him in free agency. They're just loaded there. I mean, honestly, I don't see how going into next year, the New England Patriots roll with all of these guys. They roll with Uche and Chase Winovich. Maybe Winovich is finally a trade guy because I love Winovich with a passion, but at this point, there's just absolutely, no way that they can get him on the field.
Yeah, I think Chase is more than likely the odd man out there. I think I saw Uche. I think he got some snaps in the first half. Not sure if he played much in the second half. I have to go back and rewatch it to see. I know he was out there a couple times in the first half, but yeah, I definitely need to get him more reps. He might be their, outside of Judon, maybe their best pure edge rusher, if you want to call it that. Yeah, Winovich, I don't think he's really going to get on the field. And then you have Ronnie Perkins kind of waiting in the wings. I think they're kind of grooming Perkins to replace Chase Winovich. Had a decent rookie season. I think he had like 7.5 sacks his rookie year. Just really hasn't even been able to get on the field since then. So yeah, I definitely see him getting traded or maybe even unfortunately released. But yeah, I mean, I think the depth in the front seven, that was something that Bill really wanted to hammer home this offseason. And don't forget we had guys like Henry Anderson. He's out for the year. He's hasn't been there. Montravis Adams, he didn't make the team out of camp. But we had like an army of bodies there on the defensive front seven. I think after the way we got kind of ran on last year, I think that really stuck with Bill. I think that really aggravated him. He wasn't going to let that happen again this year. Started off a little slow, but the guys are kind of rounding into form. Davin Godshaw, I think that's been a good signing. I think he's really come on of late.
He's getting there. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, Barmore, he's getting more experience, more reps in his rookie year. It's really looking bright on the defensive line, man. I really like where this team's going. Just need to get a little bit more speed at linebacker, inside linebacker in particular. I don't really know who's out there in the draft right now, or maybe even free agency this year. But that would probably be the number one thing on the defense. A little bit more speed in the middle of the field. But I like what I've seen out of the front seven so far this year, especially of late.
I completely agree, and they're only going to get better. Another big donation here, kind of end things off here. Lulu Pats for Life with another huge donation. You said, just getting tuned, but love the content and input you guys put out there. Gonna have to replay from start to finish, but wanted to send support because Pat's Global. I've been following you for years. Keep it up, mates. 100% appreciate you guys. Like always, you guys know we did this is only the second week of doing this. I really wish we thought about this earlier.
Yeah,
this is great. But we'll continue to do this next season. We'll continue to do this the rest of the season. We'll do this.
Time.
Yeah, we'll definitely even do this like the off season. Now, of course, there's going to be times where nothing's happening, but I mean, I would say even towards like the end of the season when you're looking at playoff picture and whatnot, you're looking at next season. Draft, free agency. There's going to be a lot of stuff to still talk about, especially in the offseason. So definitely still going to have Page Football Breakdown on 1 to 2 times a week for sure. And if you guys want to check out last week's post game against the New York Jets, we did one on that. And of course, we did one this week for the Chargers. 100%. If you guys did not get to watch it, I would definitely suggest watching it from start to finish. We didn't even just touch on, the Chargers. We talked about the trade deadline. We talked about the rest of the season, playoff picture. We talked about a lot of stuff in today's video. So I definitely highly recommend you guys go ahead and check it out. Like always, if you were not able to tune in for the entire thing, you're coming in late, you only stayed for a little bit, I keep each and every single live stream up so you guys can watch it from start to finish, watch with any parts you haven't seen. So feel free to do so. But Lulu Pads for Life, I really do appreciate that donation. I appreciate your constant support over the last few years. And guys, on behalf of Patriots Football Breakdown, we will see you guys next Monday for the recap on the Panthers.
Yep.
Season's going by quick, guys. Season's going by quick, but we will see you. We will see you for that recap. And nonetheless, we appreciate you guys for watching. But like always, go Pats.